You've been in rooms where nothing needed to be said, where someone walked in, quiet, unhurried, and the energy shifted. Not with charisma, not with charm, with something older, something that lives beneath language. You felt it before you understood it, a presence that doesn't announce itself, but somehow reorganizes the space around it. The kind of power that makes people pause mid-sentence, that makes strangers trust without reason, that makes the loud ones go quiet. And here's what no one tells you. The people who carry this kind of power rarely realize they have it, because it wasn't built from confidence. It was forged in silence, shaped by restraint, tempered by an understanding most people spend their entire lives avoiding. This is not the power of dominance. This is the power of absence, of strategic withdrawal, of knowing when not to act. And the paradox? The very thing that makes you powerful, your ability to sit with discomfort, to refuse the performance, to withhold your energy, is the same thing that isolates you. The armor that protects you becomes the cage that confines you. You learned early that visibility was dangerous, that taking up space invited punishment, that survival meant becoming unreadable. So you perfected the art of disappearing in plain sight. But what you didn't realize is that you weren't just hiding. You were building something, a gravitational force born from all the things you didn't say, all the reactions you swallowed, all the times you chose observation over participation. And now people feel it. They just can't name it. Part 2. Definition and psychological authority. Silent power is the culmination of 3 invisible laws that govern human perception, relational dynamics, and emotional authority. It operates beneath the threshold of conscious awareness, both for those who wield it and those who respond to it. The first psychological concept we need to understand is internal locus of evaluation. Coined within Carl Rogers' person-centered theory, this describes individuals who've developed their sense of worth independent of external validation. Unlike those trapped in what Rogers called conditions of worth, where self-esteem fluctuates based on others' approval, people with silent power have undergone a painful but liberating severance. They've stopped asking the world to confirm their existence. This doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from having your worth questioned so many times that you were forced to find it within yourself, or not find it at all. Think of it like this. Most people are tuning forks, vibrating at whatever frequency the room demands. You became the frequency itself. The second concept is negative capability, a term the poet John Keats used to describe the capacity to remain in uncertainty, mystery, and doubt without irritably reaching after fact and reason. People with silent power have an unusually high tolerance for ambiguity. They don't need to fill every silence. They don't need to resolve every tension. They've learned that power often lives in the pause, in the willingness to let discomfort exist without rushing to collapse it. This comes from early experiences where you had to hold contradictions. The parent who loved and hurt you. The environment that was both home and battlefield. Your nervous system learned to exist in paradox. The third framework is observer self-awareness, rooted in metacognition and mindfulness traditions. This is the ability to watch yourself think, to witness your reactions without becoming them. Most people are drowning in their own psychological weather, completely identified with each thought and emotion. But you developed what Buddhists call the witness consciousness. You learn to stand slightly outside yourself, not as dissociation, though that may have been part of your survival, but as conscious, deliberate observation. This creates a disturbing kind of clarity. You see the game being played while others are still insisting it's not a game. These 3 patterns, internal validation, comfort with ambiguity, and observer awareness, don't just coexist. They compound. They create a person who operates by entirely different rules. And those rules? They're invisible to everyone who hasn't been forced to learn them. Part 3. Emotional cost and philosophical weight. But let's not romanticize this. Because silent power was never a gift. It was a severance. A necessary amputation performed in childhood when connection proved too dangerous, too unreliable, too conditional. You didn't choose to become this. You adapted. And every adaptation carries a cost written into the body's ledger. The cost is this. You learn to trust silence more than speech, observation more than participation, distance more than intimacy. And while those instincts kept you safe once, they now keep you alone. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard wrote about the sickness unto death, a despair that comes not from suffering, but from the inability to be seen, to be known. You've perfected the art of being present without being visible, of being helpful without being vulnerable, of being admired without being understood. This is the invisible grief of silent power. You are felt but not known. People sense your depth but can't access it. They feel your steadiness but don't see the hypervigilance beneath it. They're drawn to your calm but don't realize it was sculpted from years of swallowing storms. And here's the fear that lives underneath it all. The fear that if you were ever truly seen, not the composed version, not the capable version, but the version that's still terrified and tender and trying, you would be too much. Or worse, not enough. So you stay behind the glass, close enough to feel the warmth of connection, but never close enough to be burned by it. And every day, the pattern reinforces itself. The silence grows heavier. The power grows lonelier. You've become the author of your own exile. Part 4. Adult Manifestation and the Unlearning Process. In adulthood, silent power crystallizes into recognizable patterns. Behaviors so subtle, they're often mistaken for personality traits rather than protection mechanisms. You might be the person others describe as mysterious or hard to read, but internally, you're an open wound wrapped in competence. You've mastered the appearance of emotional stability, while your inner world remains a carefully guarded labyrinth. In relationships, you become the perpetual observer. You can read your partner's needs with surgical precision, but when they ask what you need, the words evaporate. Intimacy feels like exposure. Vulnerability feels like handing someone a loaded weapon. So you give them everything except the truth of your tenderness. You stay close enough to care, distant enough to survive. In your career, you're often the person everyone relies on, but no one really knows. You lead through competence rather than charisma. You influence through strategic silence. Knowing when to speak carries more weight than constant contribution, but you also struggle to advocate for yourself, to ask for what you've earned, because deep down, you still believe that needing anything makes you weak. Your sense of self-worth operates on impossible standards. You're allowed to be valuable as long as you're useful, worthy as long as you're self-sufficient. You've internalized a brutal meritocracy where rest equals failure and needing support equals burden. Your boundaries are paradoxical, fortress walls around your inner world, but porous and unclear everywhere else. You'll give away your time, your energy, your emotional labor without hesitation. But ask for help? That's unthinkable. You've confused self-reliance with strength, isolation with independence. Your emotional regulation looks like control from the outside. But inside, you're still that hypervigilant child, scanning for threats, managing everyone else's emotions to keep the peace, performing stability while your nervous system hums with low-grade anxiety. And your internal identity remains fractured. There's the version you show the world, composed, capable, unreachable. And then there's the version you hide, the one that's exhausted from holding it all together, the one that wonders if anyone would love you if they saw you fall apart. But here's the shift. Awareness is not the same as self-gaslighting. Recognizing these patterns isn't about blame, it's about witnessing. Because the moment you can see the mechanism, you stop being trapped inside it. You begin to understand. These behaviors aren't you. They're strategies. And strategies can be updated. Part 5. Healing, Conclusion, and Affirmation. So where does healing begin? Not in erasing the silence, not in forcing yourself to become someone else, but in learning to inhabit your power and your softness without making them opposites. The first practice is inner child reparenting. This means going back to the moments when silence became survival, when you learned that your needs were inconvenient, when you discovered that disappearing was safer than being seen, and you sit with that child, not to fix them, but to offer what they never received. Unconditional presence. You tell them, "You didn't have to earn my love. You didn't have to be quiet to be safe. I'm here now, and I'm not leaving." The second is shadow work, borrowing from Carl Jung's framework of integrating the disowned parts of ourselves. For you, the shadow isn't the darkness. It's the softness, the need, the vulnerability you've exiled. Healing means bringing those parts back into the light, allowing yourself to be uncertain, to ask for help, to be held without having to hold everything together first.
The third is nervous system regulation. Your body still remembers the threat. Even when you're safe, your system hums with the residue of hypervigilance. Practices like somatic experiencing, breathwork, and embodiment exercises aren't about relaxation. They're about teaching your body that it's allowed to rest. That silence can be peace, not just protection. And finally, choosing softness over survival mode. This is the hardest practice, because it means risking the very thing you've spent your life avoiding, being seen in your tenderness. It means letting someone in when you can't control the outcome. It means trusting that you are lovable not because of what you do or how composed you remain, but because you exist. James Baldwin once wrote, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." You've spent your life perfecting the art of silent power, and it served you. It kept you safe when the world felt hostile. It gave you a gravitational force others could feel but not name. But the work now isn't to become louder. It's to become whole. To let the silence be sacred, not strategic. To let your power be a choice, not a cage. To realize that the people who truly matter won't be the ones drawn to your mystery. They'll be the ones who see you unraveling and choose to stay. The goal was never to be fixed, it was to be free. And freedom for you looks like this. Standing in your power while allowing yourself to need. Being seen in your strength and your softness. Holding space for others and for yourself. The world will always feel your presence, but healing is when you finally feel yourself. If this resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're still learning to translate silence into language, you're not alone. Subscribe for more on the psychology of becoming whole, not just powerful. You were never too much, you were just carrying too much alone.